CashFlow Diary Podcast, episode 458.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the CashFlow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other CashFlow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the CashFlow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you're here today because here's the thing. When it comes to making your dreams come true, we all have a different thing that we're always thinking about. And in fact, maybe as you are listening to this, you're commuting to work. You're going there right now going, one day I'm going to be, a ballerina. I don't know. Maybe one day I'm going to own that business, to be more serious. So one day I'm actually going to take that idea and start an invention or whatever it is that you think, you would enjoy doing more, and more importantly, would allow a better lifestyle and possibly more cash flow for yourself and your family. But how long is it going to be before one day becomes today? That's really a good question, right? What's it going to take to finally motivate you to cross that line? That's also a good question. But more importantly, what would happen if you could actually hear that other people who felt that way did the same thing? Today's guest has that in his background, but more importantly, I know that some of the questions that are going through your head are things like, oh my God, what if it falls apart? What if it doesn't work? These could be the things that are keeping you where you are. But more importantly, some of you have already started your business and you're like, man, I just need more of it. And you're like, how am I going to make that happen? Well, I do believe that today's guest is going to be able to assist you with all of those things. I have with me none other than Tom Cafarella, because you got to understand, he's on what I call the other coast. He's on that side of the United States, and he's out there helping individuals become real estate investors. And that process of becoming, it's not short, it's never pretty, but it's definitely possible. And what I really like is that Tom started as an accountant, but knew inside he wanted to be like grandpa and have a very successful landlording business. And that's exactly what he's managed to build out in the Boston area. He's a father of 3, and he says things like, do what you love and you'll never work a day in the life. And that's what's pretty cool. So get ready to take some notes. Let's get ready to have some fun and listen to Tom Cafarella. Tom, you there?
I'm here. What's going on today? Anything good?
Yeah, well, lots of things here on the West Coast. I know you're on the other side, but that's the weather is great.
The weather's great here right now, but it won't be for too long. So we're enjoying it while we can.
I like the qualification of right now. So that's pretty, he's like, that's going to change, but that's okay. So this is good. This is good. Now, this being the first time that you are here, on the CashFlow Diary, what I want to do is I want to ask you the same question I tend to ask everybody else. You ready?
Absolutely.
All right. I tend to look at entrepreneurs a lot like yesterday's, superheroes. And what it comes down to is that when you think about superheroes and entrepreneurs, I think we have a ton of things in common. Occasionally, as an entrepreneur, I can imagine myself flying around town and saving customers with my products and services, and maybe even often think that I'm wearing a cape. Also, like a superhero, an entrepreneur has a beginning. I mean, if you think about, say, Spider-Man, there was a time where he was just college student. That's all he was. And going around, taking some photos, doing his thing. And then all of a sudden something enters into his life. He gets bit by the spider. It's an intervening event that changes everything. He discovers he's got superhero powers and gets to choose, what am I going to do with them? So my question to you is as follows. Before, even you being the accountant before, starting Ocean City development, before, flipping and wholesaling, buying and holding, before the children, before everything that people know you for today. What we want to know is, who is Tom Cafarella?
So, I grew up in a town in Revere, Massachusetts, which is outside of Boston. And I grew up in an area where, people didn't have a lot of money. So every single person that I've ever been around, from, childhood to basically adult age, it always said to me, go to college, get a good job, work your way up the corporate ladder. So that's kind of what I did to start. And as you kind of alluded to, I was an accountant for a bit of time. But I knew at the end of the day that that life wasn't for me. I mean, almost immediately, once I got starting in my work profession, I had an epiphany. And you mentioned, that day where Spider-Man got bit. I remember what I was doing that day, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners have probably listened or read the book or listened to the audiobook Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really the moment, if you want to talk about getting bit and getting the superpowers, where my whole mindset changed, and I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew I wanted to be in business for myself, and I knew that the path that most people are on, which is what I call the 40-40-40 plan. You work 40 years doing something that you hate for 40 hours a week to take a 40% reduction in pay when you retire. I knew that plan wasn't for me right after I read that book, and that's kind of what launched, my business career.
Interesting. Now, Tom, I'm curious. You said you were told by everyone that you knew to go to school, get good grades, get a job. But was this before email? Was email around then?
Email, well, I'm 35 years old. I'm going to be 36 next month. So email wasn't around when I was a young kid. Email started to become popular, probably when I was 20, 21, 22, somewhere around that age. But no, not really.
Well, and that's what I was thinking. Is it's funny how that message, go to school, get good grades, get a job, spread better than spam.
Oh God, yeah.
It's everywhere, and somehow we all know about it. It's
it's still everywhere today, and it frustrates me because more people, in my opinion, go to college than should. And,
oh man,
somebody like myself who's a true entrepreneur, somebody who likes to start businesses, somebody who really likes to work for themselves is encouraged to go to school. And then there's other people who really, are better suited for trades or better suited for other careers that are still pushed to go to college. And I think the system, as of today, as of 2018, is really flawed. And we have this default message that we send to people that you're not successful unless you go to school. And that's really not the truth. And I think for a lot of people, it's actually bad advice.
You're not going to get any argument from me for that one. It took me, I don't know, 26, 27 years to figure out that I should have never been an employee. And about, get this, it took about 4 years of attempting to go to college to realize I should have never been. So yeah, I'm 100% with you. But your 40-40-40 plan, yeah, that wasn't for me either. I like it, but I do have a question, because you said if reading Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki was the catalyst, what I'm interested to know is what inspired you to pick up the book. Why did you go, oh, I'll read this one?
That's a question I've never been asked, and I'm not really sure I necessarily know the answer to that. I was going through a point where I was reading a lot of different books, kind of, financial type things, and I'm not sure why I stumbled across that one in particular, but that I knew that was the one that kind of changed everything for me, because it's really where I switched my mindset. I think in general, I was searching for how to become successful, just from a high level overview. Again, I grew up in an area where nobody made any money, and the most successful people where I grew up were teachers and firefighters, and there's nothing wrong with that. But most of the people I grew up with didn't have true financial success. And when you grow up and you don't have a lot of money, it changes you. I mean, you're always worried that you're going to kind of stay in that position. So I was searching to try to get out of that lifestyle, and Rich Dad Poor Dad just happened to be one of the books in a long line of books that I read at that period of time, but that was the one that was a game changer.
Yeah, totally understood. Now, I hope everybody caught the one thing he just said. Long line of books. Just because you may not go to an institution of higher learning doesn't mean there isn't something to be learned. And a lot of that education is self-taught. It's in books and it's consistently there. So I have a question for you, sir. You went to school, you became the accountant. For a lot of people, they'd like, cool, I'm done. But what I would love to know is, what was it like going to a job that you knew you either didn't want to be at, or you kept daydreaming about grandpa and what he was doing?
I do want to touch on a point you just made about learning. And so I don't want to, I'm a lifelong learner, and I
Yep.
really believe in the saying, the more you learn, the more you earn.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't want to make people think, just because college wasn't for me, that I'm even knocking other people going. For some people it's the right thing, but I'm a lifelong learner, and you can learn in a lot of different ways. You can learn via reading, you can learn on YouTube, you can go to seminars, you can find mentors, you can get coaching and all that good stuff. So I'm the type of person who I do want to learn every single day. I want to get better every single day, and I believe in lifelong learning. But just not as an entrepreneur, the path that's kind of set up for us right now isn't necessarily the best way to learn what you need to know.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. My oldest daughter, right? We had this conversation because she's like, I didn't go to college. Mom did. Do I go to college? How's that work? I'm like, you can go. If you want to. I don't have a problem with you going. But I do have a problem with you taking student loans for it, but that's a whole nother story. And At the end of the day, she's been enjoying herself, discovering, what she's good at. And it's a great experience for some. It just really, really was. I just wish someone would have said something like what you and I are talking about. Like, it's okay for some people not to go, and B, you're one of those people.
Yep.
That would have been very, very helpful. But yes, catch us up on what it felt like. Take us back to the time where, maybe you're sitting on the freeway or the expressway or whatever you guys call the freeway out there on the East Coast, and headed to work, but thinking about not being there.
Well, I mean, man, so every single day I would show up, I would get to my desk, and I would literally just read all about real estate all day long at my computer. And it was really bad. I mean, honestly, I still feel kind of bad about it to this day. I mean, I ended up getting fired because I wasn't getting my work done. And I really should have known, I mean, hindsight being 2020, that I needed to go off. I needed to do something entrepreneurial on my own, and I should have quit. But I ended up getting fired because I wasn't producing. And so I had, client work that I needed to get done, and I'd always be behind, and I was never focused. My energy was always thinking about real estate. And so, one day as I'm sitting at my desk, they came over and they told me, "Hey, this is your last day." And it's kind of interesting because I wasn't actually doing anything related to real estate at that time other than learning, but they had asked me, "Are you in the real estate field right now?" They actually thought that I was doing stuff on the side, and I hadn't. And looking back, I'm kind of, embarrassed to even say that, because I was spending so much time learning. And one of the things that you mentioned, in the beginning in the intro, is taking action. And that's so huge when it comes to becoming a business owner, whether you're, in real estate like me, or really any career. And the way I like to look at it is, for those of us, and you said you have kids, right?
Yes, 4.
How old are they?
The oldest is 21. Then we go
Yep.
down to 10, 8, and 7.
So do you remember when the 21-year-old was young?
Yes.
Doesn't feel that long ago, right?
No, unfortunately, it does not.
Right. So I always ask this to parents, and I've got 3 kids. I've got a 5-year-old, I've got a 2-year-old, and I've got a 9-month-old. And everybody who has kids says the same thing, that their kids are 15, 20, 25 years old, and it feels like just yesterday that they were born. And the thing is, in the human life, 10 or 15 or 20 years goes by really, really fast. And we only have a small window of opportunity to really live our dreams and to do what we were put on this earth to do. And really, the risk in America, it's very low, right? We quit our job, we spend 6 months, we spend a year trying to build our business in order to survive. There's not that much risk, right? In 2018 in America, what's the worst case scenario that happens? We're still going to eat. We're still going to have a roof over our heads. Maybe we don't have necessarily the luxuries that we're accustomed to for a small window of time. But everybody looks at what's the risk of doing something that you love? Okay, what's the worst case scenario? And the worst case scenario, when you think about it in America in 2018, isn't that bad. The way I like to think about it is what's the risk of not doing what you love, right? What's the risk of continuing to do something that you hate or that you really don't enjoy on a day-to-day basis? What's the risk of that 20 or 30 or 40 years from now? And I think when you look at it from that perspective, if you are truly unhappy in whatever profession or whatever career you're in, and you can do something that you love and earn a living, the best time to start is now. And again, the worst case scenario, I mean, you don't make it, you fail, you can always go back to that job that you have. That job or a job like it is always going to be available again. But that 10 or 15 or 20 years could pass you by, and then you could maybe never do it.
Well, okay. So now I'm gonna play devil's advocate for those that are listening and can't actually talk to you directly right now. They're possibly saying, well, Tom, the risk is that, you know, if they're younger, they're going, well, my parents aren't gonna like it. They're, you know, they're kind of paying for everything right now. They're gonna cut me off. That's the risk.
Yeah, so I think that's an important thing is that most people aren't entrepreneurs. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're an entrepreneur, it's unlikely that the 5 closest people to you right now are going to support your vision, because most people are employees by nature. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're an entrepreneur by nature, it's like trying to fit, you know, a square, round peg in a square hole, or vice versa, right? It just doesn't work. So one of the things that you need to do if you're entrepreneurial is get around other entrepreneurs, because they're going to think completely differently, and they're going to look at risk, and they're going to look at, you know, what you do a lot differently. So in terms of, you know, the parents, you know, not backing you, I think at the end of the day, most parents will understand if you're putting in the time, effort, and energy to build your business. Now, are parents going to support you if you say, hey, I'm going to do something entrepreneurial, and then you lay around on the couch all day long and not do anything? I'm not advocating that at all, right? I'm actually saying if you want to be an entrepreneur, you actually have to work harder. You have to work harder in the beginning so that in the end, things are going to be easier. So not everybody's going to support you, whether that's a parent, whether that's a spouse, whether that's a friend, whether that's a relative. Not everyone's going to support you as an entrepreneur because they don't understand the entrepreneurial mindset. But there's a really interesting quote by Steve Jobs, and I think it's something to do with dogma, which is essentially, you know, living the life that other people want you to live instead of living your own life. And again, we're just not around for long enough. I mean, you know, time goes by, 10, 15, 20, 30 years goes by in the blink of an eye. So you really have to think, are you living your life for yourself, or are you living your life for somebody else? You need to live your life for yourself.
Yeah, 100% agreed. What's funny, or at least ironic about that, my oldest daughter started going to school, and then she said, yeah, I'm going to become a real estate investor like you, Dad. And she was trying to take, you know, the real estate, I guess this particular college has a real estate entrepreneur track, which I was like, wow, that's pretty interesting. But she was doing horribly. And we kept telling her, you're not me. Please go take art classes, go be drama, go be a writer. You're better at that. And it took 2 years of us saying that to her before she actually did, because that's where she belongs. And that's like her skill set. And finding that pocket of skill set is something that I think every entrepreneur always goes through. But more importantly, I know I went through it as a real estate investor, trying to figure out not just real estate investing, but where. What I would love to know is to hear how you managed that transition, because it's one thing to say, you know, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Like that day they come to you and say, hey, this is your last day. That means you weren't planning. Like, what did you do the next day, Tom? How did you figure that out?
Hey guys, thanks for listening as always, and I'm glad that you continue to support with each and every download and subscription and share. One of the things that I want to ask you, though, is where are you listening to me from right now? I know some of you, maybe you're on a treadmill, maybe you're washing dishes, maybe you're walking that dog, and some of you are actually in a vehicle driving right now. One of the fun things that you can do, get some of your time back, is begin to living a car-free existence. But even then, it can be a little complicated. So one of the things that I want you to do is I want you to go over to Zipcar. Go to joinzipcar.com/CashFlowDiary. It's a way that I am able to still go get a car just for a few hours, very, very simply, so that if I have a lot of errands to run and sheets to drop off and running to the short-term rentals, or if I just want to go for a long trip up to LA and back, etc., I can rent a car for a very, very short period of time. And the cool part is I don't even have to pay for any gas. Again, go to joinzipcar.com/CashFlowDiary.
And that's the thing that I want to impress upon people, because I could have easily been one of those people who, went through that 15 or 20 years and never did anything, and I was still working my way up the corporate ladder right now. So really, I'm speaking to myself at 24, 25 years old as much as I am to the people that are listening to the podcast right now. I had a decision made for me, and what I want to impress upon people is I don't want you to have to be lucky enough to get fired to make that decision for you. So what happened to me, I got fired, honestly, the drive home from that day that I got fired was a low point for me, because I really felt like a failure, and I really felt like, is what I'm doing the right thing? Is trying to start my own business the right thing? And that drive home was really bad. But I woke up the next day and I felt, invigorated. And I said to myself, look, I'm going to give this a go. Whether or not I'm going to be successful or not, I at least have to try. I can't wake up every day going through the motions and hating what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. I can't be at work checking the clock every 5 minutes to see if it's 5 o'clock yet. And so I've got to at least give it a shot. And so I decided to give it a shot, and I put in, probably double the hours that I normally would put into a work week. And I've done that for a while. I think, hard work kind of beats everything. And so, if you're willing to really, really work hard and pursue your dreams and do something that you love, in a lot of cases, and in my case, I'm now making much more money and I have much more security than what I would have in a 9-to-5 job. So keep in mind, it's kind of interesting. I got fired in December of 2007 for being a bad employee, but 5 or 6 or 7 months later, we had the financial crisis. And so there were a lot of people that I work with that actually were great employees that ended up getting fired. So, people want to think about job security, and, you're in a job that you can't get fired from, or you're a great employee, so they won't let you go. In some cases, that's completely out of your control. When you own your own business, you have the ultimate job security. As long as you're providing products and services to the market that the market wants, and you're providing a great service and you're providing good prices to people, you're going to stay in business forever. And yes, you might have a dip during an economic downturn, but you're not going to be fired, right? So you're actually creating more job stability by owning your own company.
Now, you said something that I think bears repeating, or at least digging into, is because I have found that there's a number of people who say things like, oh, I want to get into real estate, or I want to do, fix and flip, buy and hold, all this other stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that's exciting. But you forgot something. You still have a business.
Oh yeah.
So what I would love, because you said words like, making sure that you're providing something that the marketplace wants at good prices and all of these other things. These are business terms. I find it often, that individuals who are getting into real estate forget that things like, well, you got it. There's advertising involved. You have to have customer acquisition strategies. You've got to have, customer retention strategies. You still have to have that. And because I get met with well, Jay, I just want to do real estate. What would you say to that?
So every business has the same components to it. It doesn't matter what widget you're selling, whether it's real estate, whether it's accounting services, legal services, whether you're making a product. Every business has the core fundamentals to it. They have sales and marketing. They have the organizational structure. They have the processes and procedures and the systems. So really, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. You have, as an entrepreneur, you have to learn all of those basic building blocks. And the better that you can learn those building blocks, the better your company is going to run.
Whoa. Hold on 1 second. I want to be very clear about something that you just said. He said, learn them, not do them yourself. You do have to know the building blocks. That doesn't mean you have to do all of the building blocks all the time yourself.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, within my business today, I'm really the visionary. I don't really have any responsibilities on a day-to-day basis within my business for me to do a task. So I have people in my business that perform all of the tasks, and I'm really the one that's just kind of moving, the chess pieces around. Yep. It wasn't like that in the beginning. In the beginning, I was all the chess pieces. I played every single piece.
Right.
But as my business has grown out and I've developed systems and I've reinvested back into my business, now I have other people doing that for me. So yeah, you've got to understand how to play the game. You've got to understand the rules, and you've got to understand where to put people. And in the beginning, it's going to be you doing everything, and you're going to build out from there, depending upon the personality profiles that you need for certain roles and the systems that you have.
Now, you mentioned something that I get excited about. It's understanding where to put people is what you called it. And I find that's actually become a skill set that, I mean, I didn't know I needed that at the beginning. And
neither did I. Neither did I. And I hired a lot of people. I hired a lot of the wrong people. And this topic might be a little bit too advanced for some of the people that are looking to get in. But from a long-term perspective, I have a quote on my wall by Steve Jobs. It says, hiring the best is your most important task. And as an entrepreneur, what I found out as I've grown out, and I have over 1,000 people that wake up every single day who earn their living from my business. And what I found is that hiring is the most important task for me right now, because you have the systems in place in order for people to follow the procedures, but not everyone is going to follow them the same way. And so who you hire at the end of the day, when you have a larger organization, really determines your success more than me. Because right now, I mean, if I have 1,000 people waking up every single day that are earning their living from me, I'm now kind of insignificant. I'm 1 out of 1,000 people. No matter what I do on a day-to-day basis, doesn't really matter that much. So I've got to make sure that the 1,000 people are the ones that are actually, executing orders and the best talent that I can possibly find.
Yep, 100%. Because that every one of your decisions has such a ripple effect for all of those families and their lives. I find the responsibility on some days exciting, on other days overwhelming. But nonetheless, I'm glad that you're out there making that happen. One of the things that I did want to ask, because there's always this debate amongst those that are becoming investors, and I know you would be able to shed some light on this. Should I get my license or do I not? And if so, why or why not? I know that's a very common thing. There's all sides and opinions. I have mine. You have yours. Let's talk.
I don't understand why any real estate investor would ever not want to get their real estate license. I mean, there are so many benefits to it. And, I mentioned that 1,000 people every day wake up and they get paid by me. About 300 of those people are real estate agents. And so I have a real estate agent team that helps me to acquire properties. I own a brokerage in the greater Boston area. And so there are so many benefits for investors to be real estate agents. Number one, if you buy a property on the MLS, you're going to get a commission on it. Number two, if you're flipping a property and you're putting the property on the MLS, you're going to save on your commission. You're going to be able to build out teams. There's just so many different things that you're going to be able to do in addition to being an investor by having your license. It's crazy. Right now, where the market's at in my market, the market is so hot that we have a hard time buying properties on the multiple listing service and making money. So we have to go to homeowners whose properties aren't currently available for sale, and we'll market to them. We'll mail them. We'll cold call them. We'll door knock them. We'll put up Facebook ads in order to get face-to-face appointments with sellers. And so what happens with us most of the time is that when we go out and we make a cash offer and we run our formula to see what we need to be profitable, most sellers in this market aren't interested in my cash offer. So 5 or 10% of the people that we meet with will take my cash offer and then I'll fix and flip the property, or I'll wholesale the property, or I'll buy and hold the property. But the other 90 to 95% of people that we meet with want to sell their property traditionally. So we capitalize on that by listing those houses. And so for me, I've never heard a good argument, or at least one that I've considered good, as to why investors shouldn't be agents. But I have heard people say that, you know, people will say, oh, there's, you need to disclose everything. Well, to me, you should be doing what's in the best interest of the seller, regardless of whether you have your license or not.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the worst case scenario that can happen as a real estate agent if you have your license? You lose your license. So if you're doing things ethically, that should never happen anyways. But someone's telling you that you shouldn't get your license because you could possibly lose your license. So you don't get it to begin with. You don't have it either way. What other arguments have you ever heard on that?
Well, again, it's always the process of actually going through the process. Some people just don't want to subject themselves to that. Some people feel it hurts them in negotiations, having to disclose that, yeah, I have a license, it hurts them at the negotiating table, especially when they're working with, the standard, homeowner who's, looking to sell their house and not necessarily looking to work with the realtor. They feel maybe possibly outclassed or something of that nature.
Yeah.
I've heard one of the common ones is like, look, all of the information that you get access to, I can still get access to it, especially today, online, etc. I can get access to the exact same data, to the exact same information. And probably the big one, at least for me, is that the divided focus. I love the idea of staying like, this is what I do. And I think it's always been better. It's been a better business practice for me to send. If all you want me to do is to sell your house for you, I'd rather send that to someone else and build a better business relationship with this person. Because if I'm sending you referrals, if I'm giving you money, you're going to be thinking about what I need, and I'm going to be always sending you referrals, and we're going to be able to work very well together in marketplaces. And I would rather have that marketing power.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of marketing power, though, you said something that I wish more real estate people would be saying right now. You said the magic words, Facebook ads. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people who are still stuck on the yellow letter train. And I'm like, okay, you need to be looking at other ways of getting in front of more people. I would love to hear how you guys have adopted Facebook, and more importantly, why you believe, why is it good for you, and why do you think it would be good for others?
Well, right now, Facebook is the biggest data aggregator that's ever existed. They know more about us than anywhere else, right? They know our birthday. They know what we do for work. They know what we like. They know what we don't like. They know if we own a home. They know all these things about us, right? Because first, we submit so much contact information to Facebook just by default. And then in addition, Facebook will aggregate that data with other databases. So the great thing about Facebook as compared to like TV and radio is you can actually put your ads up in front of just the people who you want to reach. So you run a TV ad or you run a radio ad, and you have to pay to put that ad up in front of their entire audience. With Facebook, you can go in and you can hand select the exact people that you want to put your ad up in front of, from age to college, education level, to what job they have. So for example, for me, if I'm running an ad for me wanting to buy properties, I'm going to exclude real estate agents that own homes, because a real estate agent is probably not going to sell to an investor. So you only have to pay for the people that you absolutely want to reach, your hyper, marketing. And so I use it, on a day-to-day basis. I spend a ton of money on Facebook ads, and I think it's the best bang for your buck right now. And, that could change 5 or 10 years down the line. A different marketing medium might come around that's better than Facebook. But effectively, you can save a lot of money by excluding all the people who would never use your products and services to begin with. And so we run ads consistently looking to buy homes in the certain areas where we want to do flip projects and wholesale projects. and buy and hold projects. And so for me, it's one of the biggest bang for your buck right now. And people have said that the Facebook ads are probably going to go up over the course of time, which I believe to be true because right now that's our biggest ROI.
Well, but even if they do, we also have the benefit as, real estate entrepreneurs. The fact is, I mean, let's be honest, what you would spend on a direct mail campaign, from an ROI standpoint, we have a lot of room to grow because the product or service that we're marketing has so much magnitude and potential in terms of revenue that, we can afford a little bit more room. I mean, if we had to pay more, we could. We don't want to pay more, but we could. But more importantly, I think you said the number one thing that I love about Facebook is that it's only in front of the person I think has the highest probability of conversion, and it's less expensive. It's easier to do. I mean, it's been the most amazing thing for our database as well. I wish more people were out there doing it. Why do you think specifically real estate or real estate businesses or entrepreneurs are slow to adopt some of these methods?
I think just, I forget what book it is, but there's a book that kind of tells how people take in technology, and there's people, they break them up into categories. There's early adopters, and then people go kind of along the curve. And I'm not really sure why people don't change quickly, but that's the reason why when real estate markets cycle or when anything changes, period, there's always a lot of opportunity because most people aren't quick to adapt to change. And the people who are quick to adapt to change have this window of opportunity that the people that take their time don't have. So over the last 2 years, I've made a ton of money on Facebook, and I have seen costs go up even over the past 2 years. Yeah. And so as more people get into the marketplace, the bidding will go up and it will be tougher to make money in that medium. But by that time, there'll probably be something else. There'll be the next new thing that people know about, but they're not willing to try. So it's kind of like the herd mentality. People usually jump in when it's too late. And so I don't know why that is, but I don't think it's just a Facebook thing. I think it's all across the board, kind of just natural human mentality.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. Definitely, for sure. Now, I know that there's a number of people who have been listening this far. They've probably like, man, one day I'm going to be like Tom. Maybe that's what they're saying now to themselves as they're driving or washing the dishes or walking the dog or doing whatever, people do. My question to you is, they probably want to get a little bit more from you, find out more about what you guys have got going on over there at Ocean City. What's going to be the best way for them to track you down?
The best way is to sign up for my webinar. My webinar kind of teaches the tips and tricks that I used in order to get started in the real estate investing business. Now, when you go to the URL www.realestateinvestingiseasy.com, you don't have to watch the webinar if you're not interested in what's on the webinar. If you put your email in, what's going to happen is you're automatically going to go on my email list, and we send out training every single day on how to become a real estate investor. So tips and tricks and stuff like that. So if you just put your email in and you don't feel like watching the webinar, you can get on my email list. And when you get on my email list, automatically on the first day, you're going to get my email. So if you guys have any questions or you need any help on starting a business, and I've started more than one business, I'd love to talk to your listeners and help them in any way I can. And again, that URL is www.realestateinvestingiseasy.com.
Okay, so I have a final question for you because here's the thing. This is what I know. I know that there's a number of individuals who have been listening this far, and in fact, they may have finally come to that point of decision. They're in their head, they're going, you know what? Tom did it. Jay did it. I'm going to do it. Let's go. And they're could be even standing in front of what I like to call the superhero outfit store. They are ready to go. But like I know, Tom, is that when we reach these moments and points of decision, oftentimes we have a partner, and that partner comes in the form of a voice. And that voice says things like, oh my gosh, who are you to actually think you're going to have 300 people like on your team? Who are you? You're going to flip houses? Really? Come on. Why don't you just go back? And it says all of those types of things. And for some people, they're even related to that voice. So my question to you is as follows. let's pretend that this person is right now, they're like, you know what? I'm actually going to get it done. And Tom, they're going to do so in the next 24 to 48 hours. What would you suggest that they do?
I think if I were to go back and do it all over again, I would always find a coach. I would always find someone who was successful in whatever field I'm looking to get into. And I would align myself and I would pay them whatever I needed to pay them in order to shortcut the process. Because the hardest part when you go on your own is the trial and error process. If you can avoid a certain percentage of that trial and error process, you're going to make money a lot faster and you're going to ramp up your business a lot quicker. There's ups and downs of owning a business. I don't care how smart you are. I don't care how hard you work. I don't care how entrepreneurial you are. And a lot of people get knocked out of being a self-employed business owner because of some of those ups and downs. By having somebody who you can work with that's a little bit ahead of you and has been through it before and that you can ask questions to, you're not going to eliminate the ups and downs, but the ups and downs just won't be as wide. They won't be as deep on the downside. So that would be something, and I did not do this myself, but this would be something that I would do first starting. And right now, I always have 2 or 3 people that are coaching me in different areas of my business. And it's, to me, one of the biggest bangs for your buck that you can get.
Yep, 100%. Absolutely agreed. Minimize those downsides anytime that you possibly can. Well, let me be the first to say that I definitely appreciate all that you have done, all that you are doing, stepping over the line and making things happen, but more importantly, reaching back and creating opportunity for others as well. And thanks for taking the time to share your knowledge, your wisdom, as well as your insight here with us today at the CashFlow Diary.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having me on.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean? Well, today, that means you're going to get over to realestateinvestingiseasy.com and make something happen. Why? Because Tom has told you, and more importantly, shown you that it can be done. Now, maybe you haven't been lucky enough to get fired yet. That's okay. But there's no time like the present to start building that knowledge base and making it happen. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun talking to you today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.